Hey, everybody. I am so excited to join you today and to have my dear friend Kelly on with us today. Kelly, would you mind sharing with everybody? Well, if you've been in my circle and if you've been hanging around Sagebrush Wellness and autoimmune recovery, you've met Kelly before. But
Mhm.
Kelly, could you please introduce yourself to everyone again so they kind of get a refresher on who you are, how you serve?
Sure. I'm Kelly Lutman. I live outside of New Orleans, Louisiana, so a very different environment than Montana, where Melissa is. In fact, it's 85 degrees out here.
We've got
We're
snow.
expecting freeze this weekend, but hello, reality check. Um, I am a functional medicine health coach, and I have a heart to help people reclaim their health. I talk to so many women my age, middle age, whatever you want to say, however you want to define that, who maybe have spent a couple decades building a career. And in the process, they've forgotten how to take care of themselves. And now they're facing diagnoses and their body just seems to be working against them. Or sometimes it's the moms who have spent decades raising family and usually putting family first and not taking care of herself. And then she too is facing things that just aren't working the same way. And I believe, I think Melissa does too, that our symptoms are not our bodies working against us. Our symptoms are not our body's call for a pill and a glass of water, but our symptoms are our body's messages saying, hey, need a little help here. This
Yep,
isn't working. And how else is your body going to talk to you but
right.
to do something that you can sense and perceive? And so Melissa and I use those symptoms as a roadmap for what's going on in the body. If you've got that headache going on a regular basis, it's not your body's lack of an aspirin or a Aleve or Advil or whatever you normally would take. It may be that you just need that glass of water, a big glass of water, because you're dehydrated or you are low in nutrients and magnesium that helps to relax the system. There's so many different causes for it. It's just not a call for the medication. And so, like Melissa, I work puzzles with symptoms and labs and your observations of your body and what you're noticing in it to identify what may be the root causes. And then the way we resolve those is we minimize what's working against your body, which could be some food you're eating or an environment you're in, or what's going on in your head, and then maximize what your body needs. Is it nutrients? Is it building blocks? Is it the opportunity to rest and sleep? So many different areas that your body just needs the support.
Mm,
And then we also help prioritize the environment for healing
mm,
because let's face it, with women, with ladies, with moms, with leaders, they tend to do for everybody else and not for themselves. And that's not going to be an environment for healing. But I also support cancer patients. I am not a cancer patient myself. I have not had a cancer diagnosis, but I have a heart for those that I have supported because they're getting a treatment that's infused into their whole body. It's intended to just kill the cancer, but it damages the otherwise healthy cells if they are not supported well. And so I wrote a book, published it last summer, Thriving Through Cancer, a holistic approach for your journey, which is all about supporting the rest of your body. And a lot of cancer patients that came to me for support were like, I know all the treatment stuff and I don't have any control of that, but what can I control? And that's the part you can control, what you're doing for the rest of your body. Maybe you can't do it alone. You may need someone to support you in supporting your body, but I give you guidance for how to do that. It makes a
mm.
big difference in you.
I love this. Oh, what a gift you are, my dear.
Oh, thank you. Likewise, dear.
Mm,
We have a message of
yeah,
resolution of disease, not just maintenance, not just shutting down the symptoms that are the body's messages. I tell my clients sometimes when we try to take a medication that will calm us down and make us feel better for a little while, it's kind of like cutting the wire that runs the brake light in your car. And you just cut the wire so the light doesn't keep bothering you from the dashboard, but it doesn't fix the brakes that actually have the problem.
exactly.
We deal with, let's work on those brakes
Exactly.
and other aspects of the body.
Oh, I love that analogy so very much. Um, I was just doing I had a client come back in. We'd worked together for a while, like 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And in between the time that she'd worked with me and came back, she had chosen to get a hysterectomy.
Mm.
And what she's coming to work with me now is actually like, it's like taking out or turning off the
Mm-hmm.
brake light,
Mm-hmm.
but the brakes are still not working. So
Yeah.
she's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, we've really got to figure out what's driving this because it's just going to start keep popping up in new places.
Mm-hmm.
And
In
I'm like,
different
yep,
areas. Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
That's how it
Yeah.
works. So I love what you've shared, Kelly, around the fact that we can actually support our own bodies
Mm-hmm.
to be well.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I've got some very dear friends that are in the medical profession as physicians. And we were talking about this one time, and I would love to hear your take on this, Kelly, is that the expectation for clients that come to see them is disease management or maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very best, sorry about that, at the very best, slowing the progression of the disease
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
That's what, like, if they're doing a good job, that's what they're able to help their clients achieve.
Right. But it's not healing. It's not
And
truly.
yeah. And as you might guess, those friends are no longer working in a typical medical circle anymore because they are like, that wasn't enough for us.
Right. And that's why I went into functional medicine as well,
Exactly.
because I was a health coach and working with people, but I kept seeing deeper issues that I didn't feel equipped to support.
Exactly.
And when I began to discover and dig into functional medicine, it was like, oh, this makes a difference. This, because it's, a lot of people don't understand functional medicine, but it's a whole body
Mm,
root
yeah.
cause
Mhm.
approach. We're looking at the whole body as a system. That's why hysterectomy, removing the uterus and potentially ovaries, doesn't fix a problem with hormones
Mm-mm.
that maybe caused the what looked like the problem in the uterus and ovaries. We still have to find out what's driving those hormones. And then, there's so many different perspectives on different disease issues, but finding the root cause, finding what's really driving it takes a bit. It takes a little exploration and experimenting and
Yep.
puzzle people. You got to work things together to figure out what's this really look like? What's going on here? And it's so dependent on the partnership with
Mm.
the client
Yes.
because I tell my clients, you're the lab. And I'm not in there to understand what you're feeling, what you're noticing, what are the ups and downs and things like that. And I'm not living your life. So even when I recommend some adjustments and some changes, we have to figure out how to make that work for them.
Yep.
And traditional medicine doesn't really do that. They just send you out the door with a piece of paper or two and instructions to do this, but a lot of times people don't know how to do with it. So we kind of come alongside, and I don't look at myself as dictating to clients. I'm alongside. They're in the
Hmm.
driver's seat. I'm in the passenger navigation seat. So,
Yep. You're the one with the map.
right.
Yep.
And sometimes that map isn't complete. We have to work on it and fill it in as we go.
Yeah.
But still, the client is in the driver's seat with the steering wheel and the gas and the brake.
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
they get to control how fast they're moving with it and which direction they really want to go. But it's a wonderful partnership.
Yeah.
It really is. When it's a partnership, when it's working together and the
Exactly.
communication is there, um, amazing things can be done.
I love that. So prior to our turning on the recording today, we were
Mm-hmm.
chatting about a bunch of things, and I would love to lean into kind of the difference between um, traditional medicine and the
Mm-hmm.
expectations there, and then functional medicine and the expectations there, and the client journey of growing up and being trained to
Mm-hmm.
accept and use the traditional route, but
Mm-hmm.
yet in their hearts, they're like, yeah, that is not for me, but I don't know what else to do. But they're then exploring alternative options. And there's a little bit of fear there because it's
Mm-hmm.
new. They don't know what to expect. Could we kind of travel that with everyone for a minute? The expectation piece, understanding, "Ugh, this is not working for me. I want to do something different, but yet I don't know." And
Mm-hmm.
kind of the little "Ooh," that can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, integrative, alternative, all these terms can come with a positive or a negative connotation depending on the
Right.
person that's using the term.
Right?
But I remember in my young years watching or catching little glimpses of Marcus Welby MD was a, a drama that was on TV in the 60s. Um, and he was one of these endearing people who just had answers, and he went to people's houses, which doesn't happen much anymore. But he was one of those that you his patients really trusted him and believed that he knew all the stuff. That was decades ago, and things have changed. And what a lot of people don't recognize is that what we call traditional medicine, what we know of as going to our doctors, was established back 100 years ago or so, when the primary issues that people dealt with was infectious disease,
Yeah.
not chronic disease.
Yeah.
Infectious disease was something to, giving a medication or something that would counter the infectious agent in the body, and you would heal, in that. But nowadays, we have developed so much more, and I think a lot of it is food based. Um, Disease that is autoimmune, which just means the body is attacking a part of itself. Instead of reading self as self and safe, it is reading something differently and attacking itself. And the different names for it just depend on what part of you it's attacking. But we also have chronic disease. Diabetes is a major one of those that are not just one piece. It's not just an infection, it's metabolism. The whole metabolic system in the
Yeah.
body is off.
Yep.
And you can't just do a pill for that.
Mm-mm.
It requires a system wide reset of sorts to be able to get it back on track, but it's possible.
Yep.
And that's one of the biggest messages in the functional medicine or alternative approach is the belief that many diseases are reversible, where most traditional doctors don't say anything about that because they don't know how to approach it.
Yeah.
Their protocols read you as you've got this disease, you need this medicine. In functional medicine, we know that you may have this name for your symptoms, but that doesn't mean it's always from the same source.
Nope.
And so we go in hunting down what's the source, what's the basis for this activity in your body. And sometimes it's beneficial to incorporate some medication to give that triage effect initially, but not long term. My perspective is if a doctor tells you you're going to be on this medicine for the rest of your life, you're not getting a systems root cause approach. And
No.
it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be a life sentence. So I don't totally negate medications, but they have a place and they don't have the overall rule over what can happen in the body.
Exactly. I love that. So what would you say to the young mama that has, and I'm just going to pick something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's been just diagnosed with diabetes. She's got two kids. She's eating right. She's working out like a fiend, trying to really help her body in all the ways that she knows. But she's at a decision space. The doctor wants to put her on medication. She's breastfeeding. She doesn't want to do that. And deep down in her heart, she's like, okay, I know there's a way to do this. I can do this. What would you say to that young mama that is thinking about looking at an alternative way of addressing this for herself? What would be your words of wisdom for her?
I think I would start with understanding just explaining a little bit about insulin resistance and why diabetes is not a sugar problem, it's an insulin problem. And we need to explain that how important insulin is in getting the glucose into the cells. And right now, her cells have been so bombarded with blood sugar spikes up and down for who knows how many years that it's like when you turn on a car and the radio's been jacked up so that you can hear it outside closed windows. Your first response is turn down that volume or turn off the radio, one or the
Yeah.
other. And the same thing with your cells. Your cells are like, overload here. Let's just turn down the volume. We're not going to receive that insulin in. And so the sugar, the glucose that would help to fuel the cells is not getting in there. So you can be super hungry because you're not getting what your cells need to feed, but it's like a catch 22. This things aren't working inside. And so I always start with food. What can we shift in your food?
Yeah.
Now, to be honest, we have, especially young mamas, 20s, 30s, they have been eating processed, ultra processed food for most of their life. And they don't see that as a problem, but helping to understand. And I go back to the 1950s when the food industry said, we're going to save women from spending 5 hours a day in the kitchen cooking their meals for their family. And we're going to start producing food that's quick and easy. And it can stay on the shelf in the grocery store for a while or in the pantry. And we're going to just make it easier. But in order for them to make it shelf stable and easily cooked, they stripped things out of the food that comes out of the field, and they often took out things that were flavorful, like the fat was removed from the food.
Mm.
So they had to put other things in for flavor. And a lot of times that is sugar or chemicals.
Yeah.
So we don't realize we got the convenience of quick and easy meals. And I'm guilty for using those for decades with my family. I didn't know until I
Yep. I
learned.
didn't either.
But we've sacrificed the time in the kitchen for lack of nurturing and nourishment in our food. And it's also been engineered to be addictive.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people will say, I don't have any addiction issues, but can you pass up that one food that you've eaten since you were a
Right?
kid? Mm.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind that there's a whole aspect of chemical engineering that works in the food industry to make you want more.
Right. Yeah.
And so, partly in educating this young mom of what's going on from the outside and then its effect on the inside, and then helping her understand we can begin to shift the ship, redirect the ship, and
Yep.
find ways, not super time consuming, but ways to cook fresher food that has more nutrient in it and will help your body begin to shift its structure so that
Mm,
your cells are able to function better.
exactly.
Um, Sometimes it takes some supplements, sometimes it takes some sudden change in your diet, and then you can shift back and balance out a little bit. It just depends on the individual. But for that mama to make changes and begin to teach her kids, you're affecting a family, and those kids might squawk,
Yep.
but they've got the opportunity to then grow up avoiding what mom encountered. And that's huge when we can change it for a family instead of just the one.
Hmm. So I heard quite a few things in that, but maybe the biggest one
Mm-hmm.
is that for this young mama, the the inside curiosity around, surely I can change this for myself is true.
Yes.
And she can
Yes.
take her power back and actually
Mm-hmm.
choose what her life looks like and choose what happens with the diabetes diagnosis and be able to change that for herself, not just for a little bit, but sustainably and potentially change that for her kiddos.
Yes. Yes. We've so long felt like, oh, if I get sick, it's up to my doctor to do something, instead of realizing we have power.
Yeah,
We've got probably greater power than our doctor.
yeah,
And we have to choose to make those decisions. That's the key, is
yeah.
making the choices. But when you weigh out the cost of long-term medical
Mm,
treatment, and over 60% of bankruptcies are because of excessive medical bills.
yeah.
So if you weigh out the cost of the long-term medical treatment with some inconvenience initially and changing diet and changing some experience, some lifestyle habits,
Yeah.
it
You
the
don't
the
compare it.
benefit is huge for the long
Yeah.
term.
Yeah. Hmm. I love that you brought that up,
Mm-hmm.
the financial side, because often we feel almost trapped in a way
Mm-hmm.
of, but my insurance doesn't cover that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like when I'm having this type of a conversation with someone, it's like, okay, so let's look at, so your insurance pays for most of your medication, but it ends up being about 20,000 a year for you
Mm-hmm.
between all the things that you have to do. And what if you need to put half of that much into a year's worth of working with someone, really
Mm-hmm.
understanding what's going on, and then the next year,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
1,000, 2,000, maybe, if you've got some really
Yeah. Yeah.
high-powered supplementation that needs to continue, you know, whereas if you stay here and worrying about the insurance, is it going to pay for this? You've got 20,000 this year, maybe next year is 22, maybe the year after that it's 25, maybe something really falls off the rails and you're looking at 100K in whatever. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
which makes more sense?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
But then
I love
also
that you
people
brought
are
that up.
saying, but it costs a lot to eat healthy.
Yeah, it does.
I I beg to differ. I think it costs a lot to buy food that doesn't nourish your body,
Right.
that
Yeah,
just goes in one end and out the other, but
yeah.
doesn't leave a good trail in the process. And
Exactly.
and we can teach people how to prepare meals that are reasonable in cost, that don't have to be super involved, but also recognizing that yes, it costs more money to get a salad in a restaurant because all of those ingredients are fresh and are not subsidized for the farmers that grow the ingredients. Whereas the pasta dish, which is primarily made of wheat and dairy and whatever else is included in that, is lower price because it's heavily subsidized for the farmer to raise and sell the crop. But the subsidized foods are what make us sick. So it's almost like the food and agricultural industries are pushing us toward eating foods that will eventually push us toward medical treatment.
Hmm.
I personally like being kind of a healthy deviant.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Just I I I recognize that if I get hit by a car or I'm in a car accident, I do need our traditional medical doctors. Trauma care, they are fantastic in.
Yep.
But for everyday
Wellness.
survival and life and living,
Mm-hmm.
they're not the ones to guide me because
Yeah.
they don't have the resources.
Yeah.
So
Mm,
it is possible when you work with someone that can guide you on how to do it, can provide recipes. Let's face it, there are young moms in their 20s and 30s that don't even know how to cook
yeah.
because they haven't been taught in
Yeah.
their family.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so sometimes you have to use other resources to, Julia Child still has videos on the internet and you can learn some real basic stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Oh,
So it's possible. It's entirely possible. In my coaching, I did a clean eating class every month that addressed different, breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts, appetizers, different things like that. And I showed how to substitute ingredients into recipes, but also demonstrated how to make those recipes and then let them taste because they
right.
needed to taste that it tasted good.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
We haven't given up our delight of eating a meal
Right.
because we're eating clean and
Yeah.
healthy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so very true. I love the possibilities
Yes.
that
Yes.
kind of is underpinning all of our conversation today. The possibilities of really leaning into your own power, the possibilities of learning how to actually change your, how do I say, familial track
Yeah.
to be better.
Yes. Definitely. Definitely. I love the familiar track because there are people that I've talked to that say, diabetes just runs in my family. It must be genetic. It just runs in my family. But what probably runs in the family more than any genes is the way you're taught to eat. the recipes that were passed down from grandma to
Mhm.
mom to you, or and then the shifts, because grandma probably did a lot more from scratch than a couple generations does. And it's
Mhm.
often it's that eating pattern
Yep.
that has opened the door for each of those family members to develop diabetes. But if you shift and change, yes, you will not, you will be different from other family members, but that's a difference I want to celebrate.
Yeah.
Healthy. I'm not at risk for losing limbs or heart disease or eyesight issues or any of the things that come down the way with diabetes. So the genetics is not a locked in, it's going to happen. Sometimes it's really not genetic, it's just family habits that pass down. And sometimes there are genetics that are in play.
Yeah.
Too often, I think traditional doctors just hint at this may be something that's genetic, but they don't usually test. And even if it's genetic, we've learned that genes are like a massive library, but the only ones that are influence anything are the ones that are in circulation. And
Right.
we have the power of turning genes on and turning them off.
Exactly.
And
Mm.
that's done through food and lifestyle. Epigenetics is a whole area of studying the influencing of genes. And it started by watching bees. When
Mhm.
you look at a colony of bees,
Yeah.
the larva that hatches is all the same. What makes a difference in a queen or a worker or a drone is what they're fed. And
Beautiful.
so, likewise, it's not just with bees, but likewise, the food that you consume, the food that you eat can affect whether you have the body of a queen or a worker or a drone of sorts.
Yep. Oh, I
So, we
love
have the power of even changing our genetic expression, not changing the genes, that's locked in there, that's there, but it's the expression of those
that.
genes that's influenced by the nutrients or the lack of nutrients that you have in your food supply.
Hmm.
So that's something else where we can work with that. It's not a done deal. It can be turned and shifted with
Yeah.
the right guidance.
Mm. I love that. This is a kind of conversation that you don't hear just
No,
anywhere, right?
no.
So I really, really treasure this, especially this talking just a little bit about genes. A lot of times we don't even get into that because it's
Mm-hmm.
very, how do I say, it's more pointed, it's more just kind of a deep subject. It's hard to just gloss over it.
Right,
Um,
right.
so I love this conversation. So how can people get in touch with you? How can people reach out and go, hey, I'd love to learn more about working with you? Where can they do that?
They can reach me by going to my website at pursuewellnessforyou.com. And there's a button on the front page where you can click to schedule a 30-minute free call with me. We can talk about your situation. And more than anything, I want to hear what someone's going through.
Yep.
And then I kind of register whether this is something that I can help with or not. And if I don't feel it's something I can help with, then I suggest other approaches that might support
Okay.
them. Right now, we're getting into the holidays. Here we are, we're recording this the week before of Thanksgiving, but I don't know when it will actually go out. But if it's next week or so, we're fully in the throes of the holidays. And
Yeah.
my heart is to support women who just go, oh, here come the holidays. It's going to be such
Right.
a challenge. And we tend to pick up the expectations, the things we remember from our childhood and the stuff that our mom accomplished and all was, and we want to do that and more.
Yeah.
And here we go again. We're undermining ourselves because we're doing so much for others that we forget to support
Mm,
ourselves.
yeah.
And so I've started a private Facebook group that will go through the end of January called the Thrive Tribe. And we are focused on tips for how to release the stress, how to support yourself,
Mm,
how to maybe
nice.
simplify and maybe even choose not to continue things you've done just because your mama always did it. Um, and it's just a place to come together as ladies and encourage and lift. I
Mm,
do believe that women, there are two approaches for women these days. It's either in competition or in collaboration. And
mm,
when we collaborate, when we work together, just like Melissa and I talking, we're lifting each other up. And each of us brings in our own giftedness. So the Thrive Tribe is available to you, and I'll give Melissa the link that she can put into the notes,
perfect.
and you can find that online and join us. And just it's not intended to be more things to do. It's intended to be some encouragement, some ways to support yourself, and perhaps permission to let go of a few things in the process.
Mm, I love that. Ah, thank you, Kelly, for today.
Thank you. I always enjoy a conversation with you, Melissa.
Oh, I love it too, because we get to talk about things that are not normal for, this type of conversation. We get to talk about things that actually make a difference for folks. And
That's the
love
key,
that.
to be able to impact a life. And in the
Right.
case of the mom and her kids, more than one life. Because often when you touch one in a family, it
Mm,
trickles and
yes.
others see the possibility for themselves. That's what it all is about, is
Exactly.
what can you experience in your body
Mm,
with some support along the way.
exactly. Exactly.
Great
Awesome.
things.
Great things. I love it. So thank you for joining us, everyone. And thank you again, Kelly. And we will see you in our next episode.